Man is the only creature who sabotages himself with his own thoughts. The lion follows instinct, the eagle follows vision, but man blessed with reason, imagination, and will too often chains himself to invisible prisons of fear, doubt, and uncontrolled emotion. And so I put before you a question that must pierce into the very depth of your soul. Who governs your life, your conscious, deliberate mind, or the storm of impulses and passions that surge through you like a restless sea? The tragedy of most lives is not lack of talent, nor lack of opportunity, but the lack of mastery over one's own inner world. A man may inherit a fortune, yet squander it in a year because he is ruled by desire rather than discipline. Another may rise from poverty, armed with nothing but the sovereignty of his mind, and build empires because he commands his thoughts as a king commands his army. Success is not the fruit of chance, it is the lawful consequence of inner governance. You must learn the supreme art of emotional detachment, not the cold indifference of a lifeless stone, but the calm dominion of a wise master who does not bow to every wind of circumstance. Emotional detachment is the fortress of the strong, the invisible shield of the disciplined, the silent power that separates the builder of destiny from the prisoner of reaction. To detach is to place reason above impulse, purpose above passion, vision above vanity. Consider this. Every moment of your life, you stand at the threshold of two choices. You may react and become the slave of circumstance, or you may respond with clarity, calmness, and conscious choice, and thereby remain the architect of your fate. The difference is subtle yet infinite. Reaction is weakness dressed in speed. Response is strength adorned with patience. Reaction dissipates energy like sparks in the wind. Response channels energy like lightning through a rod, illuminating, directing, creating. Napoleon Hill once declared, "The man who cannot control himself can never control others." That truth is as immovable as the law of gravity. If your moods govern your days, if the criticisms of others determine your peace, if the failures of yesterday poison your confidence for tomorrow, then you have abdicated your throne and surrendered your crown. But if you would become a man or woman of destiny, you must reclaim sovereignty over the only kingdom that truly belongs to you, the kingdom of your own mind. Let us define the battlefield with precision. There are three enemies you must conquer. First, the tyranny of uncontrolled emotion. Second, the chaos of undisciplined thought. And third, the slavery of external approval. These three conspire to rob you of power. When you are angry, you are no longer yourself, you are an instrument of provocation. When you are fearful, you are no longer free, you are chained by imagination gone astray. When you seek to please the crowd, you abandon your own definiteness of purpose and become a shadow of their opinions. But here lies the path to victory. Discipline the mind, detach from emotion, and anchor your being in definiteness of purpose. Purpose is the captain, discipline is the rudder. Detachment is the ballast that keeps you steady through the storms of life. Without these, your ship drifts aimlessly, battered by waves, destined to sink in mediocrity. With them, you carve a straight course to achievement, regardless of tempests. Definiteness of purpose is the beginning of all mastery. Until you decide with firmness who you are, what you seek, and what you will give in exchange, you remain as dust in the wind, scattered by every breeze of circumstance. Emotional detachment allows you to protect that purpose from being corroded by doubt, anger, or despair. And mental discipline, the daily practice of governing your thoughts, becomes the hammer with which you shape your destiny on the anvil of life. Think of the mind as a garden. If left unattended, weeds of fear, envy, and complaint overrun it until nothing of value can grow. But with vigilance, with the hoe of discipline and the seed of definite purpose, you transform barren ground into a sanctuary of power. Do you see the cause and effect? A mind enslaved to emotion produces chaos, but a mind disciplined by detachment produces peace, clarity, and irresistible effectiveness. I tell you this without hesitation. He who has mastered his inner world need not fear the outer world. Fortune may turn against him, rivals may plot, storms may rage, yet he remains unshaken, for he has placed his roots deep in the soil of mastery. The man who can remain calm in the midst of provocation possesses a power no army can overthrow. The woman who can think clearly when others are drowning in panic holds the key to leadership, wealth, and victory. Therefore, the first command I place upon you is this: Train yourself daily in the art of detachment. When anger rises, step back. When fear whispers, observe. When criticism wounds, remain still. You are not your emotions. You are the master who chooses whether to unleash them or restrain them. Do not confuse restraint with weakness. To explode in rage requires no strength. Even a child can do it. But to stand unshaken when insulted, to smile when opposed, to decide with reason rather than impulse, this is strength, this is victory, this is mastery. Emotional detachment is not escape, it is conquest. It is the decision to place your will upon the throne and command the unruly impulses of the heart. It is the refusal to be a puppet pulled by strings of circumstance. Detachment is not apathy, it is power refined. It is fire under control, not extinguished but directed, capable of forging steel or lighting a city. The second principle that you must engrave into your consciousness is self-discipline. Emotional detachment without discipline is but a temporary calm that will collapse at the first great storm. Discipline is the steel framework that holds the edifice of character together. Without it, you may dream, you may plan, but you will collapse under pressure because desire will seduce you, fatigue will defeat you, and temptation will enslave you. Discipline is the deliberate act of choosing the future over the present, the crown over the comfort, the mountain peak over the valley of ease. It is the invisible governor that tells you when to work, when the body cries for rest, when to hold your tongue, when the ego thirsts for retaliation, when to invest instead of squander, when to rise at dawn instead of lingering in slumber. Discipline is the quiet force that separates men who merely wish from men who achieve. You may ask, how does one cultivate discipline? The answer is simple in definition, yet formidable in practice, by repetition of right choices until they form habit. Every time you deny yourself an impulse that would weaken you, you strengthen the fortress of your will. Every time you choose order over chaos, purpose over distraction, you add a stone to the citadel of discipline. The undisciplined man lives as a beggar of circumstance. The disciplined man reigns as a sovereign of destiny. It is discipline that enables definiteness of purpose to stand uncorrupted. A purpose without discipline is like a ship with sails, but no anchor, a single gust, may carry it astray. But purpose united with discipline becomes as iron, it moves only by its own command. Now, let us speak of the law of autosuggestion. Here lies the bridge between detachment and discipline, the mechanism by which you rewire negative thinking and establish new patterns of greatness. Autosuggestion is the conscious planting of ideas into the subconscious mind, repeated with such conviction that they take root, blossom, and become reality. It is the deliberate rewriting of the scripts that govern your behavior. Understand this. The subconscious mind accepts whatever it is fed, whether by conscious intent or careless habit. If you constantly repeat words of defeat, you will create defeat. If you dwell on fear, fear will multiply. If you affirm your lack will grow. But if you command your mind daily with words of power, courage, and definiteness, you will transform your very nature. Hill declared, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." The word believe is the linchpin. Belief is not wishful thinking. Belief is repeated conviction, hammered into the subconscious until it becomes as natural as breathing. And how is belief forged? By the discipline of autosuggestion. You must become both sculptor and clay, shaping yourself with the chisel of words and the hammer of repetition. But beware, the mind does not rest. If you do not consciously plant seeds of greatness, weeds of weakness will grow unbidden. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the mind is no exception. If you fail to command it, it will be commanded by fear, by society, by the opinions of others. Thus, you must seize it daily, morning and night, declaring to yourself with intensity who you are, what you shall achieve, and what you shall give in exchange. In this way, you override the noise of doubt and install the music of victory. Now, let us confront the subtle enemy of progress, negative thinking. Negative thought is not merely an unpleasant state of mind. It is a thief, a saboteur, a poison that corrodes the machinery of the will. A single negative belief can undo 1,000 hours of labor. A single indulgence in self-pity can drain the energy of a month. To indulge in negative thought is to allow termites into the beams of your house. The house may stand for a time, but the foundation is rotting. The antidote is mastery over the principle of accurate thinking. Accurate thinking is the discipline of accepting only facts as facts, rejecting assumptions until proven, and judging causes instead of being deceived by effects. Most men are ruled by hearsay, swayed by opinion, carried away by rumor. They mistake emotion for evidence and sensation for truth. But accurate thinking is the compass that points always toward reality, stripping away the fog of assumption. Do you see the chain of cause and effect? Emotional detachment prevents you from being blinded by passion. Self-discipline compels you to persist in truth. Autosuggestion rewrites the inner dialogue of your mind. And accurate thinking keeps you tethered to reality. With these principles combined, negative thought has no soil in which to grow. You do not fight it directly. You starve it, you replace it, you transcend it. The man who detaches, disciplines, suggests, and thinks accurately becomes a fortress unto himself. He is calm when others are frantic. He is resolute when others are wavering. He is decisive when others are paralyzed. Why? Because his inner world is ordered, and therefore his outer world bends to that order. He does not mirror the chaos of others. He imposes his own calm upon them. That is true leadership. And here we must confront one of the most destructive illusions of our age, the belief that success is the product of external circumstances. No, success begins in the inner world and only then manifests in the outer. The undisciplined man chases conditions, believing that if only he had a new environment, new associates, new resources, then success would follow. But the disciplined man knows, change the inner and the outer must follow, as surely as night follows day. Therefore, I declare to you, stop pleading with circumstance, stop begging fate, stop envying others. Begin instead the stern but glorious task of mastering your own mind. Emotional detachment, discipline, autosuggestion, accurate thinking, these are the tools. With them, you need not wait for fortune, for you become fortune itself. Let us now advance deeper into the principle of emotional mastery, for it is the cornerstone upon which all higher faculties of success are erected. If you cannot govern your inner weather, you will forever be at the mercy of storms not your own. The man who erupts in anger has already surrendered his kingdom to the one who provoked him. The woman who collapses into despair has already yielded her treasure to the hand of circumstance. Understand this law. Emotions are forces, neither good nor evil in themselves, but powerful currents of energy. They are like fire under control. They warm, illuminate, and forge. Out of control, they burn, consume, and destroy. He who masters emotion converts passion into progress. He who is mastered by emotion converts opportunity into ashes. The world has always admired the figure who remains calm in the tempest. Consider the commander who, when surrounded by enemies, stands unshaken, and his calmness becomes the courage of his soldiers. Consider the judge who listens to the fury of opposing arguments but delivers a verdict unclouded by bias. Consider the entrepreneur who, while markets collapse and competitors panic, holds to principle, waits with patience, and reaps victory when the storm has passed. These are not superhuman gifts. They are the consequence of inner law. They are the fruits of detachment, discipline, and mastery of thought. They are available to you if you will pay the price of daily self-command. Now, let us confront the great tyrant that chains most lives, the need for approval. This craving is the silent assassin of greatness. It whispers into the ear of the talented, "Do not risk, for others may laugh." It seduces the ambitious. "Do not stand out, for others may reject you." It enslaves the thinker. "Do not speak truth, for others may disapprove." And so men of genius die with their music still in them. Women of vision bury their dreams in the soil of conformity. And whole generations live as shadows because they feared the judgment of other shadows. You must cut this chain without mercy. Approval is a shifting mirage, a currency with no value, a leash that keeps lions as pets. Ask yourself, will the applause of the crowd build your destiny? Will the criticism of fools diminish your truth? Will the opinion of the masses alter the law of cause and effect? No. Only your thoughts, your choices, your disciplines can do that. Therefore, live for definiteness of purpose, not for the approval of others. Napoleon Hill warned, the majority of men permit relatives, friends, and the public to do their thinking for them. This is not merely weakness, it is surrender. The moment you allow another's opinion to dictate your action, you cease to live your own life and begin to live a second-hand existence, and a second-hand life can never bring first-rate success. Therefore, detach from the craving for approval. Anchor your mind in principle, not in applause. Anchor your decisions in definiteness of purpose, not in fleeting opinions. Anchor your emotions in discipline, not in the turbulence of the crowd. Now, let us turn to the principle of initiative. Initiative is the offspring of detachment and discipline. The man who is enslaved by emotion hesitates. The man who craves approval delays. But the man who is detached and disciplined acts swiftly, decisively, and creatively. Initiative is the habit of doing what must be done without being told. It is the refusal to wait for permission. It is the mark of the leader, the creator, the conqueror. Initiative is born of an inner conviction that destiny favors the bold. When the mind is detached, when discipline rules the will, when purpose is clear, initiative bursts forth like a fountain. The man of initiative does not ask, will others approve? He asks, is this aligned with my purpose? And having answered, he acts. But let us be precise. Initiative does not mean recklessness. It does not mean leaping without foresight. Initiative guided by discipline is power. Initiative without discipline is folly. It is the union of calm detachment and fiery action. It is the paradox of the wise warrior still within, swift without, cool in decision, fierce in execution. Therefore, cultivate initiative as you would cultivate a rare plant. Begin with small actions. Do what others neglect. Volunteer for the task no one claims. Rise before dawn when others sleep. Take the first step in learning, in building, in creating. With each act of initiative, you strengthen the habit until it becomes second nature. And when opportunity presents itself, you will already be prepared while others are still waiting for instructions. Let us now illuminate the profound principle of calmness. Calmness is not merely the absence of disturbance. It is the positive presence of power. The calm mind sees farther, reasons clearer, decides firmer. The calm leader inspires confidence, while the restless one spreads confusion. Calmness is a force, invisible but irresistible. Think of the ocean. At the surface, waves may rage, ships may be tossed, storms may howl, but in the depths there is perfect stillness. That is the calm you must cultivate, a depth of being that remains unmoved by surface storms. The calm mind is like deep water. It reflects reality without distortion. It sees events as they are, not as fear paints them, not as anger exaggerates them, not as desire deceives them. The law of calmness is this: he who remains still within becomes immovable without. When insulted, he smiles. When threatened, he waits. When offered temptation, he pauses. Calmness is not passivity. It is the deliberate control of inner energy. It is the ability to wait until the arrow of thought is perfectly aimed before releasing. To cultivate calmness, you must practice silence. Withdraw daily, even for a few moments from the noise of the world. Close the doors of the senses, quiet the chatter of thought, and listen to the deeper voice within. This is not luxury, it is necessity. For the man who cannot be alone with himself will never be master of himself. I tell you plainly, the greatest battles of life are not won on battlefields or in boardrooms, but in the silent chambers of the mind, when a man conquers himself. The calm man is the undefeatable man, for no force can rattle him, no storm can sink him, no temptation can blind him. Now, let us bind these principles together into the great law of inner sovereignty. Detach from emotion, discipline the will, command thought through autosuggestion, think with accuracy, reject approval, seize initiative, and cultivate calmness. Do this, and you will have rewired the very fabric of your mind. Negative thought will no longer find entry. Weakness will no longer find soil. You will have forged yourself into a being of irresistible power. There is a law in nature that cannot be violated. No two objects can occupy the same space at the same time. The same law governs the mind. If your consciousness is filled with doubt, it cannot at the same moment be filled with faith. If it is consumed by anger, it cannot simultaneously hold wisdom. If it is chained to fear, it cannot act in courage. Therefore, to master your mind, you must not only expel negative thought, you must replace it with its positive opposite. This is the law of substitution. When fear arises, substitute faith. When anger stirs, substitute understanding. When doubt whispers, substitute certainty of purpose. Do not attempt to merely suppress the negative, for suppression is weakness. Replace it, overwhelm it. Saturate the mind so fully with strength that weakness finds no room to exist. Hill declared nature will not tolerate idleness or vacuums of any kind. She fills the empty spaces. So, you must become the deliberate architect of what fills your mind. If you do not, then gossip, fear, envy, and superstition will rush in to occupy it. The uncontrolled mind is like an abandoned house. Vandals and weeds claim it. But the disciplined mind is like a fortress, well kept, well guarded, filled with treasures of wisdom and faith. Now let us expose another silent enemy of greatness, reaction. Reaction is the mark of the untrained mind. The reactive man is like dry grass in the wind. Bend him with a word, break him with a glance, scatter him with an insult. His days are spent answering instead of commanding, chasing instead of leading, defending instead of building. Reaction is slavery in disguise. Response, on the other hand, is sovereignty. To respond is to pause, to detach, to choose deliberately rather than obey blindly. The reactive man is a puppet of circumstance. The responsive man is master of himself and therefore of circumstance. The reactive man dissipates energy in quarrels and complaints. The responsive man channels energy into creation and conquest. Train yourself, therefore, to pause before every decision. Let that pause be the space where wisdom speaks. Let it be the throne room of choice, where emotion kneels before reason, where impulse bows to purpose. A single pause, wisely used, can alter the course of destiny. For history is not written by the quickness of reaction, but by the clarity of deliberate response. Now we must ascend to a higher principle, the law of definiteness of purpose. Without purpose, detachment becomes aimless. Discipline becomes harshness. Autosuggestion becomes delusion, and thought becomes scattered. Purpose is the magnetic pole toward which all faculties of the mind must be aligned. Without it, power disperses like water through sand. With it, power concentrates like a river into a turbine, generating limitless energy. What is definiteness of purpose? It is the clear, unwavering decision of what you desire most in life, the decision to pursue it above all else, and the willingness to sacrifice lesser desires for its attainment. It is not a vague wish, not a fleeting fancy, but a definite burning aim that commands your thoughts, orders your days, and directs your actions. The weak live by chance, waiting to see what life will deliver. The strong live by purpose, deciding what they will take from life. Chance is the idol of the idle. Purpose is the weapon of the ambitious. If you would rise above mediocrity, you must engrave your definite purpose upon your heart as a sacred law. But beware, purpose without detachment is doomed, for emotion will derail it. Purpose without discipline is useless, for weakness will betray it. Purpose without autosuggestion is vulnerable, for doubt will poison it. Purpose without accurate thinking is fragile, for error will distort it. Therefore, you must unite purpose with all other principles. Together they form the invincible chain of mastery. Consider the life of every man who has achieved greatness. You will find a common thread, definiteness of purpose. Edison pursued light though mocked and bankrupt. Ford pursued the automobile though told it was impossible. Carnegie pursued steel though laughed at for dreaming too large. Their purposes were definite, their discipline unyielding, their detachment unbreakable. They rewrote the world because they first rewrote their own minds. Now let us confront the principle of inner resistance. The mind, long habituated to negative thought, will resist new commands. Doubt will rise. Old habits will fight for survival. Fear will whisper, "This is too hard." Laziness will murmur, "Tomorrow will do." You must meet this resistance with the ferocity of a warrior and the patience of a farmer. You are engaged in the work of rewiring. The old circuits of defeat must be broken, and new circuits of triumph must be installed. This is no instant transformation, it is a daily conquest. Each thought resisted is a battle won. Each new affirmation planted is a fortress built. Each discipline maintained is a sword sharpened. Persist, and the old mind will yield, the new mind will reign. Remember this: nature always rewards persistence. No mountain can resist the drop of water that falls upon it day after day. No habit, however old, can resist the will that presses against it without ceasing. If you would rewire negative thinking, persistence must be your watchword. Persist when weary, persist when mocked, persist when progress seems invisible. For in the silence of persistence, the mind is being reshaped invisibly, inevitably, irreversibly. Let us also expose the great illusion of speed. Many fail because they demand instant results. They plant a seed today and expect fruit tomorrow. When fruit does not appear, they abandon the garden. But the law of growth is patient. The roots must first spread unseen before the stem breaks the surface. The stem must grow before the blossom appears. The blossom must form before the fruit ripens. He who is impatient uproots the seed and declares it dead. He who is patient waters it daily, protects it from weeds, and in due time harvests abundance. So it is with the mind. Do not despise the days of small beginnings. A single week of discipline may not transform your life, but it lays the foundation. A single month of autosuggestion may not erase old fears, but it plants new ones. A year of persistence, however, will have rewired your entire being. Negative thought will be as foreign to you as chains are to the free. Thus we arrive at the summit of this truth. You are not condemned to the prison of your present thinking. You may rewire it, reconstruct it, remake it. You may strip away fear and replace it with courage. You may uproot doubt and replace it with faith. You may silence anger and replace it with calmness. You may dethrone approval and enthrone purpose. This is no dream, no philosophy alone. It is law, cause, and effect, as real as gravity, as sure as sunrise. Mark this well. The mind, like steel, is shaped under pressure and heat. Without struggle, it remains brittle, fragile, untested. With struggle, it becomes tempered, strong, unbreakable. The difficulties you face, the insults you endure, the failures you encounter, these are not curses, but the furnaces in which your discipline is forged. Do not flee from them. Embrace them as the very conditions nature uses to refine your character. Every man who has ascended to greatness has walked through valleys of trial. The difference between those who perish there and those who rise is this: the latter did not allow emotion to blind them, nor fear to paralyze them. They detached, they observed, they disciplined, they persisted. And when they emerged, they were not merely victorious over circumstance, they were victorious over themselves. For this is the supreme victory, mastery of self. To conquer a kingdom is nothing if you remain slave to your passions. To amass wealth is nothing if you squander it in vanity. To win the applause of the world is nothing if you lose command of your mind. The man who rules himself is greater than the man who rules cities. The woman who governs her thoughts is mightier than the woman who governs nations. Now let us take up the principle of imagination. Imagination, when uncontrolled, becomes a source of terror, breeding phantoms of fear that never materialize. But imagination, disciplined and guided, becomes the architect of destiny. Every invention, every enterprise, every triumph of civilization began as a vision in the mind of one who dared to imagine and then discipline that image with purpose and action. The undisciplined man uses imagination to picture failure. He rehearses defeat before he even acts. He fills his mind with images of rejection, poverty, catastrophe, and by the law of mind, he attracts them. The disciplined man, however, directs imagination as a painter directs his brush. He paints the picture of success so vividly, so repeatedly, that the subconscious accepts it as reality, and the body, the habits, the actions follow. Therefore, do not allow imagination to be a wandering child. Harness it. Train it to serve your definiteness of purpose. Feed it with images of strength, abundance, mastery, victory, And each day, reinforce these images with the power of autosuggestion until they become the very atmosphere of your being. But imagination alone is not enough. It must be united with accurate thinking. Too many are deceived by fantasy because they refuse to test their visions against reality. They mistake illusions for plans. Accurate thinking is the anchor that prevents imagination from drifting into delusion. It asks, what are the facts? What is true? What is possible under the laws of cause and effect? Thus, imagination becomes not fantasy but foresight, not escapism but creation. Let us proceed to another profound truth, the law of habit. Man is a bundle of habits. 90% of what you think today, you thought yesterday. 90% of what you do today, you did yesterday. Habit is the unseen governor of life. It will carry you to heights or chain you to depths, depending on who installs it. Negative thinking is nothing but a habit, repeated thoughts of fear, doubt, complaint, until they run without effort. But habits can be changed. The same law that built the prison can build the palace. By repetition of positive thought, by deliberate substitution of empowering belief, by discipline of action, you can create new habits that serve your destiny. Do not deceive yourself into believing you will change in a moment. No change is gradual, like the turning of a tide. At first, the old habit resists, but with persistence, the new habit gains strength. Eventually, the new current becomes natural, and the old current is forgotten. So it is with thought. At first, replacing fear with faith feels forced, but in time, faith becomes as natural as breath. This is why discipline is essential. Without discipline, you will fall back into old ruts. With discipline, you will carve new paths until they become highways. Therefore, make discipline not a burden but a friend, for it alone has the power to remake your mind. Now, let us pierce to the essence of power itself. Power is not wealth, though wealth may be one of its fruits. Power is not position, though position may express it. Power is the ability to command one's own mind, and through it, to influence the minds of others. All external forms of power are temporary and dependent. True power is internal and sovereign. The man who can remain unmoved in the face of insult, who can decide with clarity while others panic, who can persist when others quit, that man possesses power. Why? Because he cannot be manipulated. He cannot be bought with flattery, nor destroyed by criticism. He is his own master, and the world must eventually bend to such mastery. This is the reason emotional detachment is indispensable. Without it, you are a puppet of others. With it, you are a fortress. Without it, you are the plaything of circumstance. With it, you are the author of circumstance. Detachment is not weakness, it is invincibility. Consider the wise general who does not allow anger to dictate his strategy. He waits, he watches, he strikes with precision. Consider the investor who does not allow panic to dictate his choices. While others sell in fear, he buys with foresight. Consider the leader who does not allow flattery to inflate his ego. While others fall, he stands. This is the fruit of detachment, the calm that commands. Therefore, train yourself daily. Begin with small trials. When insulted, remain silent. When tempted by distraction, remain focused. When fatigued, persist a little longer. Each small victory builds strength for larger battles. Each act of self-command lays another brick in the fortress of mastery. And one day, without realizing it, you will stand unshaken before storms that once would have destroyed you. This is the destiny available to you if you will take it. The time has come to understand that mastery of the mind is not a luxury, it is a necessity. For every man and woman must one day face the question, shall I be the servant of my impulses or the master of my destiny? The world does not reward the servant, it rewards the master. Life bends not to wishes, but to will. Look closely at the history of civilization. Every invention, every empire, every breakthrough came not from the multitude, but from the individual who mastered himself and imposed order where there was chaos. The masses react, the master responds. The masses complain, the master creates, the masses wait, the master acts. This is the eternal law of progress. Therefore, rewire your thinking until it bends only to your definiteness of purpose. If fear rises, crush it with faith. If anger rises, smother it with calmness. If doubt rises, replace it with accurate thought. If laziness rises, burn it with discipline. You must become as relentless with your own weaknesses as the sculptor is with the stone. Strike, cut, polish, refine until what remains is only strength, only beauty, only mastery. And remember this, no man achieves greatness alone. Every success is built upon alliances, upon minds harmonized in common purpose. Yet, you cannot harmonize with others until you have harmonized with yourself. Chaos within breeds chaos without. Peace within breeds leadership without. Discipline within breeds trust without. Thus, if you desire to lead, begin by mastering yourself. Now, consider the principle of time. Time is the great equalizer. The beggar and the king are granted the same 24 hours each day. The difference lies not in the amount of time, but in the use of time. The undisciplined man spends it. The disciplined man invests it. The undisciplined man wastes it in reaction, distraction, and complaint. The disciplined man channels it into purpose, growth, and creation. If you would achieve unstoppable success, you must become ruthless with time. Guard it as your most precious asset, for once lost, it can never be reclaimed. Fill your hours with thought aligned to your purpose, actions aligned to your discipline, and associations aligned to your destiny. Do this, and time will become your servant instead of your enemy. Let us speak now of destiny. Destiny is not a matter of chance. It is the cumulative result of thought, discipline, detachment, and action. There is no hand of fate that forces a man to greatness or condemns him to failure. There is only law. As you sow in thought, so shall you reap in action. As you sow in discipline, so shall you reap in character. As you sow in faith, so shall you reap in destiny. The man who believes he is doomed creates his doom by the very belief. The man who believes he is destined for triumph creates triumph by the same law. For belief directs thought, thought directs action, action creates habit, habit forms character, and character shapes destiny. Now, as we draw this lecture to its towering climax, I say to you, rise and reclaim sovereignty over yourself. No longer allow your mind to be a playground for doubt, a battlefield for fear, a prison for anger. Rewire it, cleanse it, discipline it. Fill it with images of victory, with affirmations of strength, with the calmness of detachment, with the fire of purpose. Remember these words. He who commands himself commands the world. The crowd is fickle, the market unstable, the world unpredictable, but the man who governs himself is steady, unshaken, immovable. He becomes a pillar in the storm, and others lean upon him. He becomes a light in the darkness, and others follow him. He becomes a force in history, and time remembers him. Your task is clear. Begin this very day. Watch your thoughts as a sentry guards a fortress. Reject every weakness. Admit only strength. Practice detachment in every trial, discipline in every act, calmness in every storm. Repeat daily the affirmations of your purpose until your subconscious believes them, until your body obeys them, until your destiny manifests them. And never forget, the only true prison is negative thought. The only true freedom is mastery of mind. The only true wealth is the power to command yourself. All else flows from this. Riches, influence, leadership, peace, these are but shadows of the inner throne. Secure the throne, and all else will follow. I leave you with this truth, eternal and unshakable. You are the master of your fate because you are the master of your mind. Govern it with wisdom, and success is inevitable. Govern it with strength, and destiny is certain. Govern it with purpose, and the world must yield. This is the law, this is the path, this is the victory.